All right, we'll get started here. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Eggers, Chief of the Office of Communications here at NASA Wallops on Virginia's Eastern Shore. I want to thank all of you for joining us today for our Antares Media Day. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our viewers watching online on our USTREAM page. So thank you for joining us. For reporters who are watching online on USTREAM, just a reminder, if you have questions today during our briefing, you can email those direct to Trina Patterson with Orbital ATK, and her email is Trina, T-R-I-N-A, .Patterson, P-A-T-T-E-R-S-O-N, at orbitalatk.com. And now I'd like to take a moment to introduce the members of our panel today. We're joined by Bill Robel, Director of NASA's Wallops Flight Facility, Frank Culbertson, Orbital ATK Space Systems Group President, Kurt Eberly, Orbital ATK Antares Vice President, and then also Dale Nash, Executive Director of Virginia Space. And without further ado, I'd like to pass it to Bill.
All right, very good. Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for those being here, and thanks for those that are joining us online. You know, Wallops continues to be a neat place where we do a wide variety of things for both commercial and government customers. You know, at any given time, we have about 50 missions in flow, whether that be sounding rockets, balloons, or airborne science. And as I talk to you today, we've got a balloon team down in Palestine, Texas, that's setting up for another attempt here tonight. We obviously last night tried to get a sounding rocket launch off out of here, but you know, as a result of weather and some other traffic in the box, we were unable to go. So we're going to try again tonight. But the bonus we had last night was that we got to watch the space station fly overhead, so that was kind of a neat added feature. Also wanted to, you know, a combination of our sounding rockets and balloon programs are basically all run by Orbital ATK, so they've been a strong partner with us here for a number of years now. Yep, sorry. I hope folks can hear me okay. Also wanted to point out that our aircraft returned from Greenland from Operation Icebridge. It was an 8-week campaign up there where we study in 3 dimensions kind of the ice flow in the Arctic each year. Also like to mention too that we had first ever small satellite that was built here at Wallops Flight Facility and recently deployed off of the space station called IceCube. And that was on May 16th, and it's delivering us some pretty good data at this point. Speaking of which, we're basically, you know, one of 2 locations where we're doing kind of these space station resupply shots. And, you know, we look forward to a lot more of these things coming up in the future. We appreciate our partnership here with Orbital ATK and the spaceport. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Frank.
Thank you very much, Bill, and I hope you can hear me okay. Is mic working all right now? Okay. It is a real pleasure to be back here at Wallops. I wish this were a pre-launch press conference. I guess it is pre-launch, but I wish it were like tomorrow. But it'll be coming up later this year, and we're very excited about returning once again with Antares and Cygnus to take cargo to the International Space Station and working with our partners here. As Bill said, we do have a lot of presence. We've got a lot of people that work on a number of programs here at Wallops, so it's a great place to be and a really good relationship. And we're very proud of our employees and the relationship we have with all the government employees as well as the Virginia Space Flight Authority and Mars. So thank you all for what you do. We are very much committed to completing our CRS-1 contract. We have 4 more flights to go in that one. We just re-entered the SS John Glenn yesterday after a very successful mission to the International Space Station. The mission was shorter than we had originally planned, but not because of any problems, but because of the schedule and activities going on at the station and just getting out of the way of additional spacecraft that were coming and going. but everything worked very well. And we conducted science after leaving the station, as well as delivering the experiments to the station for the researchers. So we've got a lot going on those missions, and we intend to continue expanding our capabilities in that regard. And speaking of expanding our capabilities, as we move towards the next phase, CRS-2, we will, in fact, in partnership with the Antares program, be able to carry more cargo to the International Space Station on each mission by quite a bit. And that's going to really help, I think, keep things here at Wallops and keep things moving regularly to the space station. We're very proud of the capability that the engineers and our subcontractors and others have built into both the rocket and to the spacecraft, and we think that it'll continue to very effectively support the activities on the space station, especially the research, which, as we know, is one of the main reasons that they're there. We have 6 missions that have been contracted for on CRS-2. The first one has been given a go-ahead for activity, so we are doing long lead purchasing and beginning the process to start integrating the structure and moving towards building the spacecraft. And that one should launch in, we hope, 2019. That's the current tentative schedule. 5 more will follow that, and we're waiting for direction from NASA on specifically when they want those to launch. Right now, all the missions that we have on the schedule are intended to go on the Antares and to go out of Wallops Flight Facility. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kurt Eberle, the deputy program manager for Antares. Got a promotion I almost forgot about. Congratulations. And he's been with the program a long time, right from the very beginning, and has done a fantastic job of keeping things on track and dealing with issues, but mainly producing a fantastic rocket for us to fly Cygnus on. So, Kurt Eberle.
Thank you, Frank. As Frank said, I've been the deputy program manager since the start in 2007. And we started flying in 2013, and I'm now the program manager, so I'm really excited about that. Excited to be here talking to you about the Antares rocket, so thank you all for coming. I hope you're going to be able to join us for the tour. A little later, we're going to go down to our horizontal integration facility down on the island. You'll be able to see 2 rockets in flow, so we plan to build 2 at a time, basically, and we plan to have them ready in advance of when they're needed. So the OA-8 mission, as Frank mentioned, it's planned for September, but we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready. Sorry.
He's always on call.
The OA-8 mission, that was put that on the checklist, Trina. Okay. OA-8 mission is the one that's basically at a state of completion now. It's ready for Cygnus to come in, and so if we were going to be launching soon, we're about 3 weeks. We're at a milestone. We're about 3 weeks from launch. If NASA wanted us to launch earlier, so we're at that milestone now. So we'll be ready for September. We were even ready a little earlier if they need us in the August timeframe. Then the other vehicle you'll see in the horizontal integration facility is the OA-9 vehicles. That's the next one that's going to launch, and so our team is going to focus next on that one, and it'll be at this same milestone point of completion this fall. So you'll see those 2. I think it'll be a good, interesting tour. So, but I want to take you back to last fall. We had the OA-5 mission. That was the first mission of what we're calling the 230 configuration with new Stage 1 rocket engines, and just wanted to let you know that we've done detailed data review of all the data from that mission, and it was a very clean mission, very good performance. We got a little more energy out of the first stage and the second stage than we were counting on, which we always put a little margin in, and it turns out we can release a lot of that margin, and that's helping us achieve some of these higher performance levels that Frank alluded to. So we'll be flying 3,350 kilograms on OA-8. We're going to ramp that up by OA-11 to 3,500, and then we'll go even above that for CRS-2 missions, a little bit above that. So that shows the performance evolution and how we're improving the performance of Antares and investing in Antares to make those improvements. A lot of that comes with these new engines. They have 13% higher thrust. They come with 10 seconds of additional specific impulse, we call it, called ISP, and that's a measure of how efficiently the propellants are burned. And so that nets us between 20 and 25% additional mass to orbit. that we're able to turn into additional cargo for NASA. Okay, let's see. Another thing I want to touch on is right now Antares is flying these CRS missions. We have also on-ramped this configuration to the NASA Launch Services contract, and that's managed out of the Launch Services program at Kennedy Space Center. And so, so we're hopeful to be performing missions for them in the future. Another thing I'd like to point out is Bill alluded to our presence here at Wallops Orbital ATK. We've also got another rocket called the Minotaur rocket, which is uses surplus ICBM rocket motors, and we turn those into space launch vehicles for the government. And there's a mission coming up that we were awarded, the L111 mission for the NRO, and that's going to launch in 2018 from Pad 0B, which is the solid rocket motor pad that Virginia Space and Dale's group manages for us. So we're excited about that mission as well, and we hope to bring additional Minotaur launches here to Wallops. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dale.
Okay, thank you. Well, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport, or MARS, as most people refer to it, is ready to support the upcoming OA-8 mission. We'll be ready in September. We'll be ready earlier if need be. In fact, we intend to have the pad in launch configuration, which is a very specific settings and everything, by the end of July. Doesn't mean we don't continue to maintain the pad, but we'll be locked in that configuration. We're also very much looking forward to the Minotaur 1 mission coming up, the L111 of Pad B. It's good to have that in use again. As far as Pad 0A, after the last mission, we came through that very well. There's always some wear and tear as you come through each mission, but it came through in remarkably good shape, and probably for a couple of reasons. Number one, with the new engines, the RD-181s, the rocket got off the pad very fast, and the faster it can get off, the less damage you have. And the second reason is we go through a thorough analysis after each launch and look at where there's been damage, and we harden the launch pad. So it came through very clean. We advertise that we can support 30 days turnaround between launches. We probably could have done quicker on the last one. And that's both launch pads A and B. However, we have already proven that we can launch off launch pad A to the International Space Station, and then 12 days later launch a mission to the moon off launch pad B. In fact, at Frank's request, we put a sign up that said on-ramp to the International Space Station for pad A. And Bill Rebell said, well, they could get confused. So NASA brought another sign down that says moon ahead, pointed to pad B. They were so busy, we wanted to make sure that they showed up at the right launch pad with the right rocket. So many of you have seen those signs, and they have become part of our space publications around the U.S. We do offer things out of Virginia that are, we believe, very, very good for our customers, our orbital AT customer, but others as well. When they come here, they are the top priority. You don't run the risk of being bumped, pushed off. We also have some fairly wide open azimuths from 30 to 38 to 60 degrees inclination. And of course, the International Space Station is right in the sweet spot for that. So it's you gain additional efficiencies from launching here at the International Space Station. Many satellites go into those mid-inclination orbits, and we have proven we can get to the moon from here as well. So we're very proud to be part of this three-way partnership with NASA Wallops Orbital ATK and Virginia Space. We believe it's stronger than ever. The Commonwealth is committed to aerospace and the support for that, and we stand ready to support this mission and all the rest you bring our direction here. Thank you.
All right. At this time, first thank you to our panel for that, and at this time we'll go into our Q&A session. We'll start in the room here, and I would ask if you could please introduce yourself, so your name and your affiliation. And we'll start with Ken. Say where I can.
Thank you. Ken Kramer, University of Northeast China, for Frank, can you just talk about the upcoming launch a little bit more specifically? The order, whether you're going to come before the Dragon, what are the trade-offs? The decision will have to be made soon, since it's August or September. And for Kurt, you mentioned increasing the kilo mass by 150 to 200 kilograms. How will you go about doing that, firing the rocket a little longer, like you were talking on, or what specifically?
As far as the order of the missions, you'll really have to ask the ISS program about that. They set the schedule and they decide who goes when. The current schedule that's been published has SpaceX in August and us in September. Lots of things could happen, and we're ready to go in whatever order they would like for us to launch. And we've got the rest of the missions ready. We could have 2 more missions this year if requested.
Okay, your question about Antares performance. So I'll just try to, this is a little bit confusing, but let me back up a sec. So the AJ-26 engines, back when we flew them, we were offering around 2,700 kilograms cargo. We switched to the RD-181s. That gave us up to 3,200 kilograms of capability. That's the capability we had for OA-5, which flew last fall. We actually loaded a little less in conjunction with NASA, just to put more margin onto the mission, since it was a return flight. And now we're increasing to 3,350, so another 150 kilograms. So the increment from 2,700 to 3,200 was the higher thrust of these new engines, coupled with the ISP increase. To go from 3,200 to 3,350, all we did really was release some margin, and we're going to burn more of the propellants on first stage. So for OA-5, we took a conservative approach. We flew to a delta velocity threshold. When we hit that, we shut down the engine. So we had a lot of fuel left in the tanks. Now we're just going to move that threshold a little higher, burn more of the fuel in the first stage. At that point in the flight regime, the acceleration is pretty high because the stage is pretty light, because most of the fuel is gone. So you actually pick up quite a bit of performance by burning just even a few more seconds into that propellant residuals in the tanks. So that's where we get that.
Carol.
Steve Plotkin, Delmarva Public Radio. Just an economics question, just if you could talk about the comparison between doing business here versus down in Cape Canaveral.
We really can't talk about contract value and all, but it's very comparable. And we are paid for the missions by NASA at a fairly regular rate. And so we provide the integration of the launch vehicle and the spacecraft and the cargo loading and all of that. But it's all very comparable.
Just to add on that, I used to work at Vandenberg Air Force Base, launching a number of our small rockets out of Vandenberg. It was an Air Force range similar to the Cape, and NASA participates in the Range Commanders Council. They strive to stay, have common standards and the same type of safety approach and approvals that we go through between an Air Force range and a NASA range. So to us, it's fairly standard interfaces and support we get from them.
Can I just add an additional, is there any competitive edge that this location has over anybody else?
Real quick for our viewers online, the question was, does Wallops have any competitive edge over Cape Canaveral?
Pretty sure Bill and Dale are going to want to weigh in here, but it does really help us from a scheduling standpoint that we tend to be the largest rocket going out of here. We get a lot of attention when we're here, and we tend to get the resources we need. And so we feel like we have a lot of priority and very few schedule conflicts. Okay.
I just add that Dale and his team, they maintain the spaceport for us, and the spaceport is a physical place. It's Pad 0A, but it's also a lot of non-physical support that we get. They help us with logistics. They help us get permits. They help us do lots of things that enable us to be successful. So I think there is a real advantage to having the support from the Commonwealth of Virginia here.
And we are trying to add to that as well. as they are looking at CRS-2 and requirements to launch in 24 hours. We are looking at many operations. It's very hard to tell whose badge a person is wearing, and we're looking to supplement them as we roll out certain activities where we can help out to be just an extension of their team. So not throwing things over the transom, but really trying to continue to reduce their costs, improve their efficiency, and ultimately support the customer as needed.
I was just hoping you could address the, it's not a new issue, but just go over again about the boats in the launch area and what you all do to address that.
Yeah, so relative to boats in the launch area, launch hazard area, so we clear a corridor, and it depends on what it is exactly we're flying and where we're flying. But there is a stay out area that we put in place, and we have some control over some of those. And like for instance, in the case of an Antares mission, we'll have a lot more assets that we'll call up to help clear those areas. For a sounding rocket mission, for instance, we won't call up as many, and so we're watching the traffic in and out of the box at all times. So last night, for instance, we were pretty close, and in fact, you know, had we maybe had a little bit more of a window, we may have made it relative to that, but we had a number of other things that were stacked up against us. Yeah, but there is notice to mariners that are put out, et cetera, that basically we use to clear the traffic.
Here. I have one question over here.
Spaceflight Insider. Well, that's it. In other words, you, like Royal Caribbean and the cruise liners coming down, they have to watch the maritime alerts. You don't communicate directly, in other words.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And in the case of, you know, where we'll have somebody, like some of the previous missions, we actually do have aircraft, et cetera, that can fly out and try to call attention to it if we have somebody that's really not paying attention. But we have done radio alerts as well, kind of directly. So we have a number of different avenues we can go down. So most of the times we get folks that will respond, sometimes we don't.
So at this time, I'll go to a question that came in online. And this first one is from Keith Cowan of NASA Watch. And his question is, now that you've had a chance to do all of the accounting, can you tell me what the complete final cost of Mars the orbital ATK 2014 mishap was? And he's specifically asking how much to contribute, how much did orbital ATK contribute, and how much did the state of Virginia or Mars contribute? I'm not sure who best to take that, but I mean, we've talked about that before, but
It was a little over $15 million, completed in 11 months. I think it 15.1 or something like that. And it was three ways, split three ways.
And there's one follow-up from NASA Watch. Has NASA required orbital ATK to increase contingency funds it sets aside or its level of insurance coverage in the case of future launch accidents?
We've modified our insurance and our contingency funds in accordance with the current regulations to make sure that we're in compliance.
Thanks, Frank.
Asking, were Mars made to the launcher, Cygnus, or CAD based on lessons learned from the return flight last fall? Also, having come up, when is the target launch date, and what improvements are planned for Cygnus
To increase payload or other capabilities?
Well, we replaced the engines. That was the biggest mod.
What do you mean since the return to flight?
Oh, since the return to flight.
Right, since the
So-
return flight, yeah.
No, I don't think we've not made anything except to increase cargo carrying capability.
Right. as I mentioned before, we reviewed all the data from the OA5 mission. It was very clean, so there really were no problems to fix. There was some kind of normal tuning of coefficients and control equations, the type of typical stuff you get only when you go from simulation world to real world, just little tweaks. There was really nothing that we had to do to solve a problem or anything from the return to flight mission, so it was very clean. I'm happy about that. And Frank, maybe I think the other part of the question was, what is Cygnus doing to carry more cargo?
To increase payload.
Yeah, we've increased the capability of the interior structure. We've rearranged some things to make the packing even more efficient, and we've increased the capability to carry powered payloads, which is important to the research community. And we're working towards being able to load payloads later and later and later in the flow, which is one of the objectives that the researchers have, so that things are as fresh as possible when they get to the space station.
Great. And there was one additional follow-up to that was if we had a targeted launch date for our next Antares mission out of Wallops.
The launch date on the manifest right now is September the 12th. But again, we're waiting for the space station program to decide exactly when they want it.
Before going.
Hello, Mike, North Post Examiner. Going back to the boat issue, does anyone know approximately what the cost is involved with every missed launch attempt?
I mean, it varies a fair amount. For a sounding rocket launch, it's not nearly as much as what it is, say, for an Antares or a bigger mission. And again, a lot of that is as a result of the large area we're trying to clear, as well as the number of folks that we have in. You know, I'd say maybe an upper end could be maybe say to 100K or so for some of the larger missions. Last night's, I don't have an exact number for you, but we can probably find one.
Okay, any others in the room before I go back to online? Okay, I have one more question online. This is from Jeff Faust with Space News. Question for Kurt. What is the status of selling Antares launches for missions other than Cygnus missions to the ISS, either for NASA or for other customers?
I don't want to get into specifics because of the competitive nature of some of the bids, but we are actively pursuing other missions outside of the CRS contract.
And Jeff Faust with Space News had a follow-up for Frank. When do you expect a decision from NASA on when to launch OA-8? When is the earliest date you would be ready for OA-9, assuming, as we just said, a September OA-8 launch date?
I can't say exactly when NASA will decide. We're prepared to launch as early as late July, really, if need be, and thinking that we could certainly launch in August on OA-8, and we can certainly launch OA-9 by November if they would like to fly that soon. We've modified the interior of the Cygnus spacecraft to carry more payload, to carry more mass by beefing some things up and changing the arrangement of the interior to make it more efficient. We've also modified the interior to carry more powered payloads, or mid-deck lockers as we call them, which is important to the research community because they'd like to have things either frozen or active during launch so that when they get to the station, the experiment is already underway. And we're also making changes so that we can load cargo later and later and later in the flow in conjunction with our partners in Antares.
So I just have another question here from Irene Klotz of Reuters. She's asking, is there any effort underway to have Antares certified for Air Force flights, or does some of the rules that are out there on Russian rockets prohibit that?
Currently, we do not have plans to pursue DoD launches, we do not have the end-use certificate to do that. So we are not pursuing a DoD at this time. That could change. But right now we're pursuing civil and commercial, civil government and commercial.
And Irene had one follow-up. What NASA missions are you looking at for Antares besides ISS CRS?
Again, I'd like to not get into specifics on procurements and bids, but we are going after some of the low Earth orbit missions that are out there for competition.
I can comment on Cygnus, though. We are looking at design changes to allow Cygnus to be used beyond low Earth orbit, building on what we've done already for cargo delivery to the space station, to enable it to be a very capable habitat for the crew as they leave low Earth orbit and head back to the moon on the Orion and on the SLS. And so we are very much involved in the planning of what's going to come next for both cargo spacecraft and other spacecraft that could be used around the moon. And we really look forward to building on this particular program to go even further.
Thanks. Let me go back to the room to see if we have any questions here in the room. We do have one social media question that just came in. Not exactly clear if they're talking about cargo or the rocket itself, but the question is, what were the weights for OA8 and OA9? And my assumption is that's referring to cargo that we're looking to fly or have flown.
Both of those are planned for 3,350 kilograms.
Okay. And we have one more in the room here. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm the number of flights then, looking forward to scheduling for this location is 10. That's 4 plus 6.
That's what we expect, is 10 more flights, 4 more in CRS-1 and 6 in CRS-2. But we haven't been given the specific task orders for 5 of those yet.
Right. Thanks.
And I'll go to the room one more time. Any more questions here from the room? I think this crew is anxious to see our hardware and our pad. Any more from online? All right, well, at this time, we'd like to conclude our briefing, but again, for those of you online, thank you for joining us today. For those in the room, one of the key reasons why we do a media day is to show you these things that we're doing and get you this footage, because on launch day, as you know, it's a lot busier. So we appreciate you being here, and for those online, if you haven't seen one of these, we invite you to come out anytime. Again, thanks for joining us, and have a good day.